Oh my goodness, look at me. I'm on the screen. What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well today on this fine evening. Just hanging out here. Haven't done a live stream in a minute. Actually forcing myself to come out of my shell a little bit and get back on and do some live streams because it's a good outlet. It's fun. It's a good way to share information that I read on Overload. Pretty much what I do in my free time is read. Try to read on my way to work. It's funny how I listen to audiobooks on my way to work, as my kid would say. He's like, "You're not reading at all. You're just listening to audiobooks." Whatever you say, bro. Still, I listen to a lot of audiobooks on the way to work, and one that's been really a part of my life right now is called the Immortality Key by Brian Muraresku. Sorry if I butchered the name, my guy, but I'm not good with names necessarily, but I tried. But it's fascinating, mind-blowing stuff, talking about the origins of Christianity and how they could be linked with the origin, the pagan origins, how those all kind of coincide and link together. And talks about the Pagan Continuity Hypothesis, which is essentially what we already know, how elements of paganism were accepted into Christianity, basically. I'll go into further detail on that in a minute. But honestly, it's absolutely mind-blowing, like what they've gotten into in this book, and I haven't even finished it. Like, it's one of those ones I've gotten so excited about that I can't wait to read it, but I also don't want to finish it at the same time. But for those that are just joining, again, I'm talking about the Immortality Key. So let's get on to it. So I'm going to give a little bit of a brief summary on it as I'm just jumping on here. So he begins the book by tracing the history of the use of psychedelics in ancient Greece. Not the direction you thought this was going to go, I'm sure. He shows that the Greeks used psychedelics in a variety of religious and medicinal contexts, and that they were seen as a way to connect with the divine. That's a key word there. So the author argues that the early Christians adopted the use of psychedelics from the Greeks, and that they played a role in the development. Oh, my thing is telling me to be ready for my live. I'm already doing it. They played a central role in the development of early Christian mysticism. So his most controversial claim in this book is that the Eucharist, which is the central sacrament of Christianity, was originally a psychedelic sacrament. And this is one of those things that's a big statement to make. For those that don't know, the Eucharist is the drink, which is, let's pass around the drink and all drink the communion wine. To suggest that this could be a psychedelic brew in the ancient past is crazy. Once I heard about that, I'm like, man, it really gets the mind turning, gets the little bells turning in the mind, because I'm going to tell you a secret. A lot of people, especially a lot of Christian folks that I know, I'm going to give a good example, will completely, they hate hippies. They hate, they think they're drug addicts and stuff like that. But if you really listen to any of the hippie movement stuff that they're talking about, any of the people that are from that movement, they'll be talking about peace, love, and unity, right? Think about what Jesus was preaching in his time. He was preaching peace, love, unity, oneness, serving others. Those things are not, what the movements of today are really preaching. It's, hey, you either accept this dogma or you go to hell. You either accept what I'm telling you, or we're going to excommunicate you, or we're going to execute. In the past, they really executed people for this kind of crap. And so for this guy to bring forth this kind of information, it's insane, because there's quite a bit of evidence to support these theories. There's quite a bit of evidence. And before we talk a little bit more about psychedelics, it's important to note that everything that you know about psychedelics, especially if you're against it, comes from the government telling you that they're drugs and that they're bad. Any research into this subject, just like science is showing now, any research that goes into it is showing the positive benefits that psychedelics have on the mind. Completely, helping to reset depression, completely helping to, help with dementia. All kinds of different treatments are being used and now, funded for these kinds of things. Oregon, you can actually use it as mental health treatment. And people talk about life-changing results. They actually start this book with a John Hopkins study that they did psilocybin mushrooms, and almost all the people report religious type experiences, life-changing religious type experiences. And a lot of these people are atheists. And it's an important note that just because, in a note here, just because this is saying that, hey, these drinks back in the day could potentially have been laced with, psychedelics, doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It means that our understanding of God is what is wrong. So I'm going to lay it out there. What I truly believe is that the God of the Bible, the God that we know, is portrayed incorrectly. I'm going to tell you that God is the universe itself. That's what I believe. I believe that no matter what you believe, if you're an atheist, this is something you can accept, is that God is not the sky daddy that's going to strike you down for believing or not believing, because that doesn't make any sense. We're dealing with many, many, many millions of different religions all over the world, many different sects of Christianity, for example, and all of them say that we have the right answers, and that can't actually be the case, okay? And all these different religions, they literally hate everybody from all these different religions. It doesn't make any sense. And it breeds this hatred, and it pushes people who don't believe even further away. And what he talks about in this book is that way back in the day, in the early parts of Christianity was actually an illegal mystery cult. And it actually shows, there's evidence that it comes from older Greek, pagan religions. And what they were doing is they would all meet and have these funerary feasts, and they would drink this potentially psychedelic laced brews. And then they would have these religious type experiences where they would communicate with the dead or the gods or whatever you want to call it. And anybody who has taken psychedelics, like me included, know that this is very possible. It is absolutely possible. But what is different is a lot of people would write this off as it's from the plant itself. It's not real. And what if that is not the case? What if this is very real? What if we are getting a glimpse into another level of reality? And that's what they're starting to research with the DMT experiments they've been doing now. Like, they're replicating DMT experiences, which is dimethyltryptamine, where people are interacting with otherworldly beings and reporting back. And a lot of people are reporting the exact same things. So how could this be, a coincidence? Like the same drug giving you meeting the same people. You're dealing with something more. And that's what's actually in the ayahuasca brew in South America, is dimethyltryptamine. It's something that they've drank all over the world for quite a long time, that gives you these visionary experiences. And the idea was to die before you die. My sister's actually calling me while I'm doing a live stream here. That's the glories of doing a live stream. But yeah, honestly, this book is blown my mind as far as the amount of research that's gone into it. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not backed by no data. This is backed by solid scientific data. People that have traveled all over the world looking for this stuff, real well-respected scientists. And it's crazy, because what does that mean? So essentially what it would mean, if this is actually true, is that the Vatican chose to lock all this information up and make it to where the only way through God is through them. And they've essentially, and one more important thing is that these rites back in the day were actually instituted by women. So women were the focal point in these ancient religions, not men. And the Vatican stepped in and changed that and made it to where it was all a men thing. God were chosen by men. And, there's actually evidence, if you've read the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, that Mary Magdalene was the first person to see Jesus after his resurrection. I believe they attribute that to, I think, John. I don't know that one for sure. But anyway, people will probably destroy me on that, and that's fine. because at the end of the day, you're believing every single thing that you've been told. And what if you've been spoon-fed a bunch of lies? What if what you've been told is not the truth? You know, people in these religious things, they often freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? Contradict themselves, because I'll give you an example, like the flat earth stories, right? So they're saying that all their information for the flat earth supporting comes basically from the Bible. And they'll tell you that you believe everything that you've been told your whole life about science, and, you know, without question. And you could say the same thing. You believe everything that you've been told from the Bible without question, when a lot of it doesn't make any sense either. You know, I'm not saying that all of science makes sense. I'm not saying that, you know, all of religion doesn't make sense. But the fact is that there's a lot more questions than there are answers when it comes to religious type subjects. And there's no one willing to answer, because heresy, right? Nobody's going to question God. But I think personally, based on researching different religions, reading books like the Law of One series, reading books like this, my understanding of God is different than most people's. I firmly believe in God. I firmly believe that the universe itself is God. I firmly believe that I am a piece of the divine, communicating with you, whoever's listening, who is also a piece of this divine. I believe that's why you can have a religious type experience regardless of what religion you believe in. Anybody can have a connection with the divine, because all of us are the divine. And that's the key. Nothing else matters except for love and loving others. That's it. That is the basis behind all of this stuff. And the fact is, we go through this day-to-day life and constantly get inundated with nonsense, inundated with depression, you know, negative things all day long, every day. And we all fall away. This happens to people who follow religion. This happens to people who don't. And people start to fall into old patterns. So what these drinks did back in the day is everybody would meet up, you know, once a year, once a month. They would drink this stuff, and then they would basically cleanse all of this stuff out of their body and remember what it is that you are. Reconnect with the divine. That's the problem with humanity right now, is that we like to think that we're all connected, but we're not. Like, we're not connected with the divine like we should be. Like, all of us are one being, and we act as though we are divided. And the way to this is not going to church and listening to somebody else tell you the answers every Sunday, because if that was the truth, many more people wouldn't be questioning this stuff. Many more people wouldn't be trying to assert the will of God. How could you possibly know that? That's just the facts, man. How could you know what God wants? How could you know or listen to what the preacher is telling you in front of you and tell you, hey, this is the answer for sure? How do you know that? You don't. You're just trusting somebody else. And the fact is, these people are telling you to hate these people. These people are telling you to hate these people. These people are saying that these people are evil and need to be taken out. And why? Why is any of that true? We're all humans in this world, regardless of what religion we freaking follow. I have friends who believe in the devil. I have friends that are atheists. I have friends all over the spectrums. And guess what? We're all friends, and it doesn't matter what anybody believes. And I think what the original intention of these, like, again, funerary drinks is to come together and to celebrate and be and connect with the divine without having to deal with the dogma of religion. That's what turns all these people away. If you're wondering why people don't want to go to church, it's because of this dogma. But I do want to touch on the Pagan Continuity Hypothesis to give it a little bit more depth so people know, because people might not know. So the Pagan Continuity Hypothesis is the idea that Christianity gradually absorbed and transformed pagan beliefs and practices during its spread and development in the Roman Empire. This hypothesis suggested that Christianity did not entirely replace paganism, but rather incorporated many of its elements, leading to a syncretic blend of beliefs and practices. Proponents of the Pagan Continuity Hypothesis point several examples of this syncretism including the adoption of pagan festivals and holidays. So Christmas, Easter coincide with pagan festivals and celebrated on the solstices and equinoxes. The incorporation of pagan imagery and symbolism. So Christian art and architecture often incorporated pagan motifs, such as the use of sun symbols and animal figures. The survival of pagan deities and spirits. Some pagan deities and spirits were reinterpreted as Christian saints or demons. The continuation of pagan rituals and practices. Many traditional customs and rituals, such as bonfires, processions, have their roots in pagan practices. So critics of the pagan continuity hypothesis argue that the similarities between Christianity and paganism are largely superficial, and that the adoption of pagan elements was more a matter of convenience than a conscious attempt to incorporate pagan beliefs. They also argue that the survival of pagan practices is often due to their persistence in folk traditions rather than their conscious preservation by Christians. It's always good to have the opposite argument in everything you do. Like, I'm all about that. I'm about opposite arguments. I'm about keeping your mind open. And that's the problem with today's society, is the closed-mindedness. Like, I can have a debate with somebody without being closed-minded, you know? I might believe that the ancients were drinking a psychedelic brew, but I also want to know where they learned it from. And a lot of the ancient texts say they got it from the gods. What does that mean? Like, who were the ancient gods? For those that have watched other of my podcasts or anything like that, know that I have a certain type of belief about our ancient history. I believe that our history is way more complicated than any of us are ready to know, are ready to accept. I'm not ready. I mean, I'm ready to accept it, but a lot of people are not. People lash out online. You know, I posted videos where, like, talking about Graham Hancock and stuff like that. People get up in arms. Like, no, he doesn't know anything about our ancient history. Yep, said the person who hasn't left their house, who hasn't studied any of these ancient civilizations, who haven't, you know, looked into any of this and just know how impossible that all this stuff is. How we keep finding older and older ruins. How we're building megalithic structures at the same time we develop farming. How and why? You know what I mean? These questions are fascinating to me. You know, I should have honestly gone into archaeology. that should have been where I went, because this stuff's fascinating. So here's a book that has absolutely changed my life. Oh, backwards. Oh, the Law of One. I forgot the term, but the Law of One is where I get a lot of philosophy. But I also question everything I read there. I question everything I read everywhere. I am as much of a skeptic as I'm a believer in a lot of stuff, you know. But honestly, I went through a phase when I was addicted to different stuff that I shouldn't have been addicted to, where I got heavy into conspiracies. I've pretty much read every single conspiracy theory you could possibly think of, and the fact that a lot of them has come true is crazy to me. I've researched most religions. I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read the Holy Bible. I've read, you know, the Dead Sea Scrolls version of the Bible. I would love to learn how to translate the Greek, you know, learn ancient Greek and translate the Greek Bible, because in the Immortality Key here, he talks a lot. He uses the Greek Bible, which is the original translation, as the reference. And dude, there's a lot of mistranslations in the Bible. There's a lot of interesting ways they present stuff that they're trying to tell you something. It's very cryptic. It's very, you know, what do you want to call it? They're using symbolism. They're using metaphors and all that neat stuff to describe a lot of things. Hey person joining. Talking about the Immortality Key. I don't know if you can watch it later if you want, but it's the history of the religion with no name. Talking about the ancient Greeks and how the pagans or early Christians adopted paganism, etc. But in any case, I forgot what I was talking about now. Let's see. Let's finish off this. I'm actually going to be getting off here pretty quickly, but please enjoy watching this if you want. But to close it out, I do want to talk a little bit more about, like, the Immortality Key itself, because, like, this book has absolutely blown my mind. The idea that you could die before you die is something that is something anybody who's taken psychedelics in their life would know that this is probably true. The ancient peoples were definitely drinking psychedelic laced brews, and this is how they were communicating with the gods, etc. But in any case, I'm actually going to jump off here. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Many, many blessings coming your way.